Dangerous but normal creatures. Level 1 is basically the warm-up round of Abyss Horror, but still very capable of ending your career if you slip up. These are the normal predators of the Abyss, the ones that function like animals instead of cryptids designed specifically to ruin your lifespan. They hunt, bite, claw, chase, and do all the standard predator stuff, except they live in an environment that absolutely does not reward weakness, so even the simple ones hit way harder than anything on the surface. These monsters behave like regular predators. They attack when they feel threatened, or you make a loud noise near something shiny. Their instincts make sense, their habits follow clear patterns, and their threats stay rooted in simple physical danger. The Abyss needs a baseline of wildlife to keep its food chain moving, and these creatures fill that role while still being strong enough to overwhelm a careless delver. You can read their movements, avoid their nests, and plan around their hunting routes. That clarity is the only mercy they offer, because even at this level, they punch far above what surface creatures can manage. Level 1 creatures are the typical hazards of the Abyss, and they show rookies how quickly a simple mistake becomes a fatal lesson. This category covers creatures that rely on defense mechanisms, pack behavior, or basic weaponry like teeth, claws, beaks, and speed. They don't manipulate the curse, mess with your mind, or operate on 1 in a million biological quirks. They simply do what animals do, and they do it in an environment where even the air wants you gone. Most delvers can survive encounters with these creatures if they stay alert, but underestimating them usually leads to missing limbs, shredded gear, or swift death. The Hermit Dweller, for example, adds a local twist to the idea of simple wildlife. These rodents live in city areas of the 6th layer, which is a region where return is impossible for humans. They're naturally curious and don't treat strangers suspiciously, but their behavior shifts if they feel cornered. They bite when they need to protect themselves, and their teeth are structured in a way that inflicts deep, painful wounds. The injuries they cause take a long time to heal due to the damage their bite pattern creates. Their sharp teeth also serve another purpose. They carve out shelters inside objects like ammonites or discarded helmets from lost delvers. This doubles as camouflage, since the 6th layer is full of predators, and blending into the environment is their best long-term survival strategy. They represent the idea of normal life adapting to the Abyss, with whatever tools it can manage. Meanwhile, the Dread Owl pushes into a more specialized direction, while still operating through understandable predator logic. These creatures also live in the 6th layer and have round, fur-covered bodies with sacs protruding from their upper backs. They move on multiple limbs ending in hook-like claws, and they have large eyes and a long beak suited for tracking and attacking prey. Their biology gets more interesting through their body fluid, which interferes with the life insignia that every living creature imprints on the Abyss's force field. Some organisms can sense these insignias and use them to hunt. The Dread Owl gains an advantage by spraying its fluid on the prey, disrupting the insignia so the target becomes unnoticeable to other predators. The creature essentially locks the prey's presence for itself, keeping competitors away. The effect even spreads from contaminated hairs or sebum back to the prey's entire body. The fluid keeps its interference properties even after the Dread Owl dies, staying active until its structure naturally breaks down. Despite how strange this ability is, the creature still behaves like a traditional predator. Find prey, track prey, take out prey, and protect the meal. The Hamashirama, on the other hand, fills the aquatic role in the 5th layer sea of corpses. These creatures look bizarre, and their body changes dramatically between water and air. Underwater, they resemble balloon-like swimmers, drifting through layers. They feed on organic detritus from other aquatic life, and just like everything else in that layer, they bypass the effects of the curse. Their sensory organs differ significantly from surface creatures, giving them strong navigation and detection abilities in the sea's unusual environment. All of their organs are packed into their head, and they compensate for their fragile body by spitting a paralyzing mucus. This toxin is strong enough to stop predators in their tracks, and the Hamashirama have been observed using immobilized animals as moving shields. They are harmless outside of water, dying quickly and losing all offensive potential. The only threat comes when dealing with them in their home territory, where oxygen deprivation and sensory confusion from the curse make even simple actions deadly. Some rumors suggest they feed on life force, adding another layer of uncertainty to their role in the ecosystem, though nothing verified supports that claim. The hammerbeak is one of the most straightforward predators on this list. These avian creatures live from the surface to the 4th layer, and show up everywhere delvers travel early on. They love shiny objects and steal anything reflective to bring back to their nest. Their signature trait is their solid skull fused with a hardened beak, which they use aggressively in fights. When one hammer beak is threatened, the entire flock responds and overwhelms the target through sheer numbers. They also pick off weakened creatures, taking advantage of anything already injured. Male hammerbeaks argue through headbutting matches, and the impact between the two of them can create sparks due to how reinforced their skulls are. Despite this, hammerbeaks aren't very big, and rely almost entirely on their beak as their only serious weapon. For delvers, they aren't major threats unless someone gets surrounded, surprised, or targeted at a bad moment. The big thing about level 1 monsters is predictability. They operate on instincts you can recognize, hunger, and threat response. If you're experienced, you can read their posture, figure out their attack patterns, and maybe even outsmart them. They're deadly, but they're fair about it in a way. You mess up, they win. Pretty straightforward. But even at this level, straightforward in the Abyss is way more intense than anything a surface dweller would consider normal. These creatures are often the first wake-up call for rookie delvers. The Abyss doesn't do easy mode. If this is the Animal Kingdom's entry tier, you can imagine how much worse it gets as you go deeper. Environmental ambush killers. Level 2 monsters are basically the Abyss telling you, congrats, you survived the basic predators. Now let's see how good you are at not touching the wrong thing. This tier covers anything that hides so well it might as well be part of the environment. These creatures aren't chasing you, roaring at you, or flexing their teeth for intimidation points. Their whole vibe is sit completely still, wait for a dumb explorer to wander close, and then delete them in one move. They win through patience. They blend into the terrain, mimic harmless structures, or tuck themselves under ledges and foliage. The moment someone investigates something that looks slightly off, these things snap into action. They take advantage of the Abyss's overload of strange shapes and colors. Delvers second-guess everything because the scenery can kill them at any moment. Level 2 creatures turn that paranoia into an efficient hunting method. They also shape how people explore. A layer filled with visible predators creates fear. A layer filled with things that look like flowers, puddles, shadows, or rocks creates hesitation with every single step. Delvers learn to poke, test, and inspect their surroundings because the Abyss doesn't warn anyone twice. Level 2 creatures reinforce the rule that nothing in the Abyss should be trusted as it is. Now, let's fold in the details from the two major creatures associated with this level, the Amaranthine Deceptors and Pseudo-Water. Both of them fit the level 2 theme perfectly, but they take the whole environmental ambush concepts to extreme. The Amaranthine Deceptor is one of the nastiest examples of environmental mimicry in the Abyss. These insects originally came from the 6th layer, and for a long time they were mostly known through rare white whistle reports. The notes of the legendary white whistle delver Liza expanded what anyone understood about them, including sketches and ecological observations. Unfortunately for everyone else, these insects have started appearing in higher levels, especially around the Garden of Flowers of Fortitude and the 4th layer. No one knows why they're migrating upward, which has raised concerns about them spreading to more clusters of eternal fortunes, also known as flowers of resilience, which blooms everywhere. By hiding among these flowers, they turn peaceful gardens into ambush zones. They attack anything that wanders too close and plant larvae inside their target. The worst part is that they remain completely dormant during mimicry, which lets them fool even creatures that can read conscious flow through the Abyss's force field. When they finally attack, the victim never gets a proper chance to react. Once they manage to plant their larva, the host gets eaten from the inside. As the larvae spread, they eventually invade the head. At that point, the host becomes a food reservoir and can be kept alive by adult insects crawling into the mouth to feed it. The host remains alive longer, which allows the larva to keep feeding. The sheer stuff of the Amaranthine Deceptor is what makes them so dangerous. Their ambush tactics have eliminated many black whistle delvers before they realize anything is wrong. They even leave colonies in large groups when they're up against a strong opponent, which shows how aggressive and coordinated they can become when pushed. Pseudo-Water is another level 2 nightmare, but instead of blending into the flowers, this one blends into your survival instincts. It appears and behaves like normal water, right down to the refreshingly deceptive texture. Explorers who drink it feel hydrated, which makes the danger even worse because it encourages more drinking. Once ingested, its parasitic nature takes over. Pseudo-Water infection hits the digestive system first. The parasite lays eggs inside the host, and those eggs get excreted near the host because the infection causes uncontrollable diarrhea, sickness, and the eventual immobility caused by the host's deforming body. The eggs are nearly invisible, small, clear, and easy to miss, so anyone traveling nearby might accidentally step into another infection cycle without realizing it. The infection leads to the host body melting in a grotesque way before hardening into a substance similar to lead. After the host dies, the pseudo-water eggs hatch inside the deformed corpse, which acts as a container for their water-like form. This creates a new tempting source of water for the next thirsty creature. Larger masses of pseudo-water exist inside pond-like structures built from layers of victims' bodies. It almost wiped out the Ganja group during their descent into the 6th layer, while Zukyan, the group's leader, eventually figured out a way to survive the infestation. And yeah, the method is about as disturbing as it gets. He started using the remains of Urumyi's dead children as the main ingredient in a stew to feed his starving sick group. To his shock, the stew actually eased their symptoms. From there, he escalated things and used her living children as well, realizing the fresher they were, the stronger the effect. That's how they finally managed to cure the infestation. Rico's group, on the other hand, avoids it by using streams, since pseudo-water needs a pond or a larger body of water to grow to a sustainable size. Even with this weakness, its ability to pose as harmless drinking water shows how well it fits the theme of Level 2, the Abyss creature's threats that hide in plain sight, and use normal survival routines against you. Together, these examples reinforce what Level 2 monsters represent. These creatures make explorers question every object, every plant, and every drop of liquid. They blur the line between environment and predator, with consequences that can turn a single mistake into a slow, irreversible death. Groundkeepers. Level 3 monsters are basically the local landlords of the Abyss, except instead of collecting rent, they collect limbs. These are the groundkeepers, creatures who don't just live in a zone, they define it. Their entire existence revolves around controlling a chunk of the Abyss with the kind of confidence usually reserved for final bosses and toxic HOA presidents. These monsters are territorial to the point of obsession. Step into their turf and they react instantly, like you just rang the wrong doorbell in the wrong neighborhood. Their senses are tuned specifically to detect intruders, movement, vibrations, scents, even shifts in airflow. The moment something crosses into their domain, they switch into eliminate or expel mode, no hesitation required. What makes level 3 creatures terrifying isn't just their size or strength, it's how perfectly they adapt to their specific patch of hell. Every nook, every ledge, every hiding spot, they know it all. They use the terrain against you like they personally designed it. The Abyss already hates you, but these monsters weaponize that hatred. Their purpose within the ecosystem is straightforward. They regulate the balance of their zone. Because they dominate their territories so completely, other creatures often evolve around their presence, either avoiding them entirely or developing niche strategies to survive near them. Now, the creatures that really show what level 3 monsters are all about, Autobus, take territorial behavior to another level. These huge amphibious animals live near the bottom of the 2nd layer, close to borders of the inverted forest. Before ending up in the Abyss, they were known in their homelands as King of Jungle Rivers. They weren't born in the Abyss, but they adapted to it over generations, and grew far larger than what they originally were. Even with that adaptation, they still couldn't compete with established predators of the 2nd layer, and were gradually pushed into the innermost area of the inverted forest, where the force field is thinner. Despite being omnivores, they're fully capable of swallowing a human whole, so getting too close is a terrible idea. Their temperament is extremely aggressive, especially towards anything touching their territory or their water source. During Rico and Reg's 10-day training in the inverted forest, one goes straight for Rico when she tries to draw water from his pond. Later, it charges at Reg while he's looking for her and slams him into a tree without hesitation. Embryos are another perfect example of a level 3 territorial behavior. These gibbon-like primates also inhabit the inverted forest and use their long arms and fingers to glide through the trees with ease. Their bodies are covered in dark fur except for their hands, feet, and noses, and their eyes glow red in the shadows. They don't live alone, they form groups, and those groups defend their territory aggressively. When something crosses into their domain, they start by throwing objects to force it out. If that doesn't work, they chase the intruder until it finally leaves. Silk fangs bring a different flavor of territorial control. These large insects appear in the 1st layer and claim a dome-shaped territory about 10 meters wide. They extend sticky feelers throughout that dome, turning it into a natural trap. When the prey steps inside, they move at incredible speed, crossing their entire zone with ease. They can spit a paralyzing poison and have venomous stingers on their snouts that can also cause paralysis. Inside their dome, they're extremely dangerous, but their threat level drops sharply outside of it. They never leave the dome and usually rest at the top until something blunders inside. As long as you spot the dome ahead of time and don't step into it, avoiding a silk vein isn't hard at all. Lastly, and definitely the most dangerous creature in this level, ore piercers are one of the biggest threats waiting in the 4th layer, and they earn that reputation the moment you spot one. They look like massive porcupines covered in quills, but their most distinct feature is the red round head full of tiny holes. That strange cluster of holes is their force field sensing organ, and is what lets them move through the abyss with scary accuracy. They're known for having an awful temper and defending their territory without hesitation. Even though they're herbivores that spend their time eating the algae off the flat creepers, they treat the entire 1 kilometer stretch of flat creepers as their personal property. Delvers use those same flat creepers as major travel routes, so anyone crossing the 4th layer has to stay alert and hope that the ore piercer stays out of sight. Over the years, a single ore piercer is believed to have taken the limbs or lives of more than 100 black whistles, which says a lot about how dangerous the species is. When their life is on the line, they can shed their needles to create an opening to escape. The needles regrow very slowly, so fully mature ore piercers are rare, which might explain why you don't see too many of them. Their spines are long, sharp, venomous, and strong enough to pierce metal like it's nothing. They can even punch through the scaled umbrella, an artifact known for being unusually durable. Ore piercers are frighteningly strong and can unleash full power instantly, even on slick ground. Their biggest advantage, though, is still their force field sense. This ability lets them read the flow of consciousness around them, which basically gives them an instinctive prediction of an enemy's next move. Fighting them becomes nearly impossible because they react before you even finish deciding what to do. Their only real weakness is the force field sensing organ on their head. It's extremely sensitive, and touching or striking it sends the creature into unbearable pain and disorients it to the point of going berserk. The problem is that getting close enough to hit that weak point is a challenge on its own. With their predictive instincts, most delvers have no chance of exploiting it. Only white whistles are realistically capable of taking one down. Their venom adds another layer of misery. It kills slowly, but is highly potent, weakening victims and causing severe swelling as it spreads through the body. Delvers often end up amputating affected limbs just to survive. The only known antidote was created by Nanachi while searching for a way to peacefully end Midi's suffering. These creatures sum up what a level 3 monster really is, something that doesn't just live in the abyss, but shapes the entire flow of life around its territory. They thrive by controlling space, defending it fiercely, and responding instantly to anything that crosses the invisible line they've decided is theirs. Emotion manipulating predators. Level 4 monsters are where the abyss stops trying to kill your body and starts going after your sanity. These are the emotion manipulating predators, the ones that don't chase you down with claws or teeth, but with your own fear, confusion, and instincts. They weaponize the senses you normally trust, and that alone puts them in a completely different threat category. Instead of relying on brute strength or speed, level 4 creatures mess with the emotional and psychological side of survival. Some mimic voices to lure you off safe paths. Some copy scents to pull you closer, and others create sounds that make you freeze up even when every fiber of your being tells you to run. They take advantage of the fact that their prey react instinctively to familiarity. They guide the behavior of anything in their area, making prey, including humans, walk right into their traps. When you think you heard someone you know, or smell something harmless, or sense something normal, your guard drops for a second. That single second is usually enough for them to strike. Take the Amakagami and the 3rd layer caves. They don't chase prey, but attract it. Their huge stomachs cling to cave walls with vein-like roots, and the scent of their stomach acids mimic Barakocha fruit, the favorite of the Niratantan. Prey is drawn close and swallowed whole. Their thin skin makes them surprisingly vulnerable. Riko tore through one with a small dagger, but their real danger is how they lure in victims. On top of that, they release pheromones that attract Niratantan, and their waste nourishes fruit that sprouts around them, creating a thriving symbiotic network that shapes their immediate environment. Moving higher up in the abyss, corpse weavers of the 2nd layer's Forest of Temptation use manipulation in a more aggressive way. These massive carnivorous birds learn the cries of their prey, including humans, and use those cries to bring others right into their colony. They're highly social and raise their young collectively, with elders carrying captured prey to feed the chicks. Their sheer size, wingspans exceeding 10 meters, and strength allows them to lift adult humans with ease. Their asymmetric eyes give them exceptional spatial awareness, letting them react instantly to threats above. Unlike typical birds, They don't tear with beaks, they use their tongues to rip and slurp meat. Entering a corpse weaver colony is extremely dangerous, even for experienced delvers, because the entire environment works to trap and confuse intruders. At the extreme end of the spectrum is Tenmaku, a 7th-layer predator capable of manipulating senses and even interfering with force field detection. You can see this in action when Reg suddenly can't smell Nanachi, and when Hail Hex and Hello Abyss both end up facing illusions of the creature. Its presence alone can make detection impossible, and it regenerates rapidly from injuries. The creature's sensory abilities are so advanced that they resemble colony-level coordination, though it functions as a single organism, possibly relying on symbiosis. Tenmaku moves through the air using a massive mantle-like organ that interacts with the force field, letting it traverse 3-dimensional space unaffected by the curse of the abyss. Its tentacles, covered in countless fangs, can strike like whips, pulverizing structures or breaking the shells of large prey. It can even devour a human whole, and the full range of its abilities remains unknown. What makes them especially dangerous is how unpredictable they are. You can't always tell when you're being manipulated, and half the time you only figure it out after it's too late. Their abilities blend perfectly into the abyss, turning natural environments into traps built on sound, scent, and instinct. You might survive a fight with a monster you can see coming, but level 4 monsters don't give you that luxury. They go after your mind first, and once that slips, your body follows. Monsters shaped by the curse. Level 5 monsters are creatures shaped directly by the abyss itself. They're warped in ways that make them almost unrecognizable, their bodies and instincts twisted by the curse. They don't follow the usual rules of evolution or biology. Some move in ways that feel unnatural, some regenerate from wounds that would kill almost anything else, and some are just completely alien in their forms. The abyss makes them, and in return, they define parts of the layers they inhabit. They act as extreme examples of what happens when life adapts, or is forced to adapt, to the curse, and they're a huge reason why even experienced delvers are cautious around unknown creatures at this level. The most well-known of these are the Nerahate, sometimes called Hollows. Nerahate are people or creatures that survived the 6 layers curse but came out deformed. The way they look depends a lot on how the transformation happened, and no 2 Nerahate are really the same. Nanachi points out that when delvers spot a Nerahate, they usually kill them and take their stuff, thinking it's safer to claim the person died than admit someone survived the 6th layer with their humanity intact. The transformation is sometimes considered a wound of honor, because it proves the person reached the absolute boundary, but the cost is permanent. Most Nerahate end up as blobs of flesh with very little brain activity, unable to function like humans again. Midi is the extreme exception. She's basically indestructible, doesn't need food or water, can neutralize toxins, and heals quickly from any injury, though her tissue gets more mangled each time. Even she has limits though. Artifacts like the Sparagmos or the Incinerator can deal permanent damage. At Ido Front, Bondrewd monitored Nerahate life signatures with a red light system, and in rare cases, he could transfer the burden of the curse onto another person. This created what he called the blessing, leaving someone deformed but keeping their mind and overall body intact. Nanachi and Bondrewd themselves are the only ones known to survive this way. Then there's the Nerahate in the village of Iruburu, which are a completely different story. These Nerahate are the children of Irumyui, born after she fused with the Cradle of Desire. The village itself was set up by stranded Ganja members who were stuck on the 6th layer and discovered the Cradle could grant deep desires if the mind was simple enough. Initially, Irumyui gave birth to small rabbit-like creatures that didn't have digestive organs and would die quickly, but the villagers realized eating them fresh could cure sickness caused by the pseudo-water. Later, Irumyui reached a point where she could transform humans into Nerahate, creating a whole population of these creatures within the village. Unlike most Nerahate, these ones aren't cursed. They're bound to the village and protected by it. Their forms are shaped by what they most desire, and while most can't leave the village, Faputa is the exception. She's created similarly, but remains independent of the village, so she has her own place in the abyss. Because the village doesn't have a force field, the curse doesn't function there, making it safe to spot for the otherwise dangerous level 5 beings. Juso, or Beast Guises, are another rare type of level 5. They're considered Nerahate born naturally in the abyss, but unlike most, they retain much of their humanity. They're rare, and most are killed shortly after birth for reasons that aren't fully understood. Some of the surviving Juso can activate with the use of a white whistle, functioning almost like artifacts. They have a special organ near their heart called the Beast Stone or Awakening Organ, which is what allows this activation. Certain Juso, like Nishigura, Yataramar, and the Hail Hex twins, have shown this ability in action. Srajo is even able to sense the Beast Stone from far away, showing just how unique and powerful these rare beings are. Level 5 monsters represent the Abyss at its most extreme. They are deformed, unpredictable, and sometimes nearly immortal, shaped by forces far beyond ordinary survival. Some maintain minds and personalities. Others exist as little more than survival-driven flesh. They blur the line between creature, human, and anomaly, serving as a reminder that the deeper you go, the more the Abyss itself becomes the predator. Apex Predators. Level 6 monsters are the true apex predators of the Abyss. These are the ones that don't just wait around in their territory for prey, they actively hunt. They dominate entire layers, and their presence alone can shape how every other creature behaves in their area. If a level 6 monster decides it wants something, it will go after it relentlessly, and there's very little that can stand in its way. They're fast, strong, and often have abilities that make them nearly impossible to predict. The Sakawatari is probably one of the most extreme examples of this. It's the largest bird in the Abyss, and its size alone is staggering, over 50 meters long from head to tail. Turquoise with a little green and black and wings, a white belly, and long deep blue feathers trailing from both wings and tail. It's visually impossible to ignore. Its eyes are covered by a hard black membrane, but that doesn't matter because it senses the force field around it, which it uses to navigate and hunt. The Sakawatari can ignore the curse entirely, allowing it to hunt as far down as the deepest layers without suffering damage. It preys on creatures like hammerbeaks and hermit dwellers and will travel all the way up to the surface to find food. Its claws are over a meter long, so it doesn't just grab small prey. It uses sheer size to reach and dominate. Even though nothing is known about its spawning or child rearing, the bird's hunting and movement alone mark it as a true apex predator. Then there's the Crimson Splitjaw in the third layer, a massive scarlet-red reptile with a serpentine body. It primarily sticks to the steep cliffs but can surf air currents by spreading its hood. Sometimes it travels up to the higher layers to hunt, though that's rare. Its eyes are vestigial, but it has 3 black sensory organs near its mouth that detect the force field, helping it locate prey and even valuable artifacts to swallow. Crimson Splitjaws attack any delvers on sight, making them among the most dangerous creatures in the third layer. They're cunning hunters, using the air currents and the terrain to their advantage, while keeping an eye out for opportunities to swallow whatever comes near. The stingerheads of the 5th layer take danger to a whole different level. Huge 7-tailed scorpions reaching over 2 meters in height. Each tail carries venom capable of melting flesh and bones almost instantly. Individually, they aren't too bad for experienced delvers, but they hunt in groups and form colonies, so running into a nest is a nightmare. Their territory is easy to identify by the smell of burnt, dried vomit and the discolored sandstone from their venom and prey. Stingerheads especially like human entrails, using their tails to melt and consume them from the inside. Even knowing they're there, avoiding them isn't simple. The colonies actively patrol and hunt in coordinated patterns, making them extremely effective predators. The Turbinate Dragon in the 6th layer is another apex level predator with some of the most intimidating abilities in the Abyss. Dinosaur-sized, with a long neck, 6 legs, and a beak-like mouth, and 6 fang-like tucks on its lower jaw, it's armored in poisonous reptilian scales that rupture when struck, releasing a strong toxin. Its back carries a snail shell-like growth with appendages that move independently, and it can move in 3 dimensions without being affected by the curse. Turbinate dragons are territorial and aggressive, often fighting each other in massive collisions. Their attacks are devastating. A stomp or impale from its legs can chip through Reg's metal arm, and they can launch slimy explosive projectiles from their proboscis-like organ, causing damage to everything around. Their intuition is uncanny, almost like premonition, letting them hit prey smaller than themselves with precision. Even when injured, turbinate dragons continue attacking, and their talons can instantly harden to extreme rigidity, making them a threat from every angle. They are fast, intelligent, and extremely difficult to kill. In short, level 6 monsters redefine danger for anyone venturing deep into the Abyss. They move across entire layers, hunt actively, and can crush anything in their path. Each one, from the air-dominating Sakawatari to the territorial stingerheads and the unstoppable turbinate dragons, show how the Abyss creates predators that are tuned for survival at the absolute top of their ecosystem. For delvers, encountering one of these creatures is more than just a threat. It's a reminder of how unforgiving the abyss really is. The living nightmares of the deep. Level 7 monsters are the ultimate nightmares of the abyss. They live in the deepest parts of the abyss where the curse seems almost alive, and the rules of reality start bending. These creatures are forces that dominate and shape their surroundings, with abilities far beyond anything in the upper layers. One of the most terrifying threats in the abyss isn't even a natural predator, it's the result of human obsession taken to the extreme. Bondrewd was a white whistle delver whose drive to uncover the secrets of the abyss pushed morality, law, and decency aside. To fund his research, he sold powerful artifacts, traded forbidden knowledge, created dangerous drugs, and carried out inhumane experiments on living humans. The results of these experiments were worse than anything the abyss itself could throw at someone. These twisted creations often survived in ways the curse didn't account for, reshaping life in forms that were stronger, faster, and nearly indestructible. Despite the obvious horror, people turned a blind eye because his discoveries were groundbreaking and advanced the understanding of the abyss far beyond what anyone else had achieved. About 10 years ago, he established a massive research base called Ido Front deep in the 5th layer, a facility unlike anything before. It became the hub for his experiments, a place where impossible cave raiding techniques were tested, and the boundaries of life and death were pushed to extremes. Even before this, his notoriety had already spread beyond the abyss. He had committed crimes overseas, earning a bounty on his head, and yet he continued his delving, selling whatever he needed to keep his research going. Bounty hunters came for him and never returned, and eventually, people stopped trying. During this period, he discovered a special grade artifact called Zoaholic, which allowed him to spread his consciousness across multiple bodies. This is how the Umber Hands came into existence, clones of himself, all under his control. Around the same time, he used his own body to forge the life-reverberating stone needed to create his white whistle. Instead of being blown, it's activated by rubbing it, since blowing would be awkward with his full face mask. His collection of personal artifacts reads like a dream for any collector. Far Caress, a tentacle weapon with absurd reach and strength, Third Works, a psychokinetic tail for his second body, Canopy Until Dawn, a full set of armor pieced together from artifact bits, Sparagmos, a light blade capable of destruction, Gangway, a homing beam weapon, and Shaker, which can inflict the Curse of Abyss on others. One of his most notorious experiments involved children. He invited them to Ido Front under the guise of research, but they were the test subjects who were eventually turned into Nerahate by sending them down to the 6th layer. Among them were Nanachi and Midi. Most of the children were used and discarded. Only Nanachi and Midi survived until the final trial. Midi was left cursed beyond recognition, while Nanachi was blessed with her current form. He also adopted a young girl named Prushka, the orphan daughter of a fallen Umbra Hand, raising her as his own. But naturally, everything he did had an agenda. Eventually, Nanachi escaped with Midi when she could no longer endure the twisted experiments. Yet he showed no remorse even after Midi was later put to rest. When Riko, Reg, and Nanachi eventually reached Ido Front, he welcomed them and explained the way to the 6th layer via the Altar of the Absolute Boundary, though they needed a white whistle to activate the elevator-like artifact, which Riko didn't have. He offered them a place to rest, but later that night, he confronted Nanachi, asking her to work for him again. Nanachi agreed only if Riko and Reg weren't harmed, but it was already too late. He had already ordered Reg's body to be examined. This led to a wild confrontation. They lured him and his Umber Hands into a nest of deadly creatures, where all of his clones were destroyed except for him, who escaped using Sparagmos. In the ensuing fight, the kids damaged his armor, struck him with abyss curses, and crushed his body under a boulder. Thanks to Zoaholic, one of his Umber Hands replaced him, and he then knocked out Prushka after reuniting with her tearfully, prepping her for surgery. Later, Reg, Nanachi, and Riko snuck through Ido Front, searching for Reg's missing arm and a way to stop him. They ended up in the processing room, where he had created cartridges, devices designed to transfer the Curse of the Abyss to a living shield. A Berserk Reg stormed in, triggering another brutal battle. Reg destroyed part of Ido Front, and the fight continued in the miniature Garden of Dawn, a secret test area under the base. As the fight escalated, he was hit by the Blessing of the Abyss, the same phenomenon that transformed Nanachi, redirecting the curse onto Midi. He achieved this by sacrificing Prushka, turning her into a cartridge to absorb the Abyss's curse in her place. In the end, the trio outsmarted him. Reg blasted him with the incinerator, using his detached arm as a launcher. He admitted defeat and even praised them for surpassing him, but the dark truth remained. Even defeated, he likely continued his experiments on more children. His creations, the results of his obsession, are far worse than the curse itself, making him one of the most horrifying monsters in the abyss. Then there are the unknown creatures of the 7th layer. The 7th layer of the abyss is the deepest layer on record, and it's full of unknown creatures that could have easily outmatched anything from the layers above. These beings are thought to have destructive abilities far beyond what any other abyss monster can do. More than just being dangerous, they may hold the key to understanding the curse itself, and the force field that saturates every corner of the abyss. Sightings are rare, but according to Srajo, there have only been one documented instance of the 7th layer curse, recorded in a sealed letter discovered in the 1st layer over 250 years ago. The exact nature of the curse here remains a complete mystery. Liza's notes mention a figure spotted at the entrance of the 7th layer, described it as a human-like silhouette, which later became known as the girl type. This figure resembles Reg in stature and general form, but has a number of distinct features. It wears a cape and a horned helmet with a central display. Unlike Reg, the helmet is perfectly symmetrical, with a large center display that has a huge dent on the side. Liza's doodles show the cape decorated with armor-like pads, with frayed ends, and the collar is positioned differently just below where a handle would be on Reg. The silhouette has no visible hands, instead featuring prominent claws and long hair. Srajo's notes suggest that older sightings indicate the girl type may have had a high-pitched voice and a feminine form, hence the name. Liza observed this figure jumping with unbelievable strength while fleeing, which made her question whether it was even a human. Not much else is known about the girl type's past, but when Reg overcharges with electricity at idle front and loses control, he recalls being influenced by multiple presences, including Liza and the girl type. In the movie adaptation, a vision of the silhouette appears during Reg's overcharged state. Later, it's revealed that Reg is actually the older brother of the girl type, and that they had fought previously in the 7th layer. Large defacements in the area are implied to have been left by her during this battle. Then there's the Ring of Essence, which isn't a creature, but might be the key to understanding the force field that blankets the abyss. This pervasive energy field sustains life, blocks observation between the surface and the depths, and is responsible for both the blessings and the curse of the abyss. The Ring of Essence is a mysterious component or property tied to the abyss, known only to a few: Bondrewd, the Abyss tribe, and possibly Liza's White Whistle Donnie. Its exact function is largely unknown, but its shape and light have been described as precious and comparable to one of the most destructive forces in the abyss. The 7th layer's Ring of Essence likely got its name from its enigmatic object. Reg's incinerator and the star compass are both connected to it, often referred to as the light of the essential part and the shape of the essential part. Donnie hints that something connected to Reg is waiting at the Ring of Essence, implying it's deeply tied to Reg's origin. Reg himself is an interference unit, a powerful relic or robot created in the deepest parts of the abyss. It's widely believed that he was built by an advanced society known as the True Residents, possibly the descendants of the original builders of the Abyss City. The civilization is highly advanced, secretive, and had abandoned humanity to survive the curse. Unlike the Nerahate of Iraburu, who are transformed humans, the True Resident has become something completely beyond human. They're thought to be behind the so-called 2,000-year cycle, which lures people into the abyss to increase its value. Reg is believed to be a part of this society, and the entity waiting at the Ring of Essence could be another interference unit, perhaps even an original or more advanced model. The True Residents may ultimately represent the abyss's most terrifying and unknown threat, a presence so advanced and removed from humanity that it could overshadow everything else in the abyss, including its curses and monsters.